Coming up on this vacation edition of Locked On Senators, another great SensCentral Citizen.
We love our citizens, and today it's Dennis. He tells us all about being a Sens fan and how this team could use a little bit more discipline.
Yes, he does. We'll get into that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 946 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow the show on social media at SensCentral on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. It's last-minute tickets at the lowest prices. It's guaranteed. It's game time. Today is Wednesday, December 27th, and Pilsy, as people are listening to this, I am flying to the beautiful island of Kauai, and we have a game day. So I would like you to give us a two-word game day preview against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Leafs suck.
Nailed it.
I mean, boom. What else needs to be said here? Yeah, is you're bouncing around the Hawaii Islands. I'm enjoying some sunshine in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. So it's a little different vibes for us than how we're recording right now. But we hope the vibes can remain high, as Ross, pretty much anytime I've been wearing this hat on the podcast. We were in Cabo when I first debuted it, and now we're getting to enjoy some more sunshine. So the vibes are always good when we got the bucket hats out.
It certainly is. And hopefully the Senators have a big night tonight. I'm rocking my North Dakota bucket hat. So maybe if you're looking at FanDuel, I'd be looking at Jake Sanderson tonight to have a big game. And JBD. And hey, we are less than a month away from Shane Pinto's eligible return January 21st against the Philadelphia Flyers. But today, we've got a fantastic SensCentral Citizen for you, so let's get right to it. Here is Dennis. All right, we now welcome on this week's SensCentral Citizen. We're headed out to the East Coast, where we find Dennis. Dennis joins us. Welcome to being a SensCentral Citizen. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. How are you doing today?
We're doing okay. We're recording this after a 4-3 loss to the Arizona Coyotes. And yeah, they gave up 4 straight goals. But other than that, I'm doing great. What were your thoughts on last night's game?
I would say in a nutshell, went a little bit worse than I was expecting. Not a lot. Definitely, some changes on the structure side of things, and just the way that they play overall. It was very evident within like the first minute of the game. But then, once the team started experiencing a little bit of adversity, especially once we were at 3-2, you can see the Sens were just, basically doing everything they could to revert back to their old ways. Yep. And not to say that the players were intentionally trying to lose the game or anything like that, but it's just, when those habits are so ingrained in you, it's difficult to fight that, right? It's a learned behavior to unlearn all the stuff that you've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's a process, so not surprised, but still sucks.
Yeah, Dennis, when this game started, I was like, this is going so much better than I thought it could ever go. They score really quickly. Angus Crookshank gets his first NHL goal. They score within seconds of their first power play opportunity with Alfie running things. And I'm thinking, okay, this is as good as it gets. And then, as the Senators do, it gets as bad as it gets. But we're used to that around here. Hopefully, through time with Alfie and Martin behind the bench, there's some changes here. But we'll get to all that in a second, because SensCentral Citizen, we got to start off. Dennis, how did you become an Ottawa Senators fan?
You know what? I'll try to be as quick as I can on this one. I kind of put it into
take your time.
That's all good. I kind of put it into 2 stages. So I became a Sens fan in 1997 when the Sens had made the playoffs for the first time. So I tuned in. I was only 10 years old at the time, but I watched every single game. I was actually quite enamored with how the Sens were playing, because at that time the Sens weren't even expected to win a single playoff game, right? And they took the Buffalo Sabres, who I think at the time were a Cup favorite. I think at that point in time, they took them to Game 7 or OT of Game 7, right? And and it was close. And up to that point, I guess I just tuned in because I was just generally sort of curious, because up to that point, around my neck of the woods at the time, the Sens were still sort of generally known as the District 5 of the NHL, So, but no, like, I watched it, and then at the end of the series, I was just kind of thinking, like, am I a Sens fan now? Yeah, I guess I am.
There you go.
So, so I got in there, and then I would say they really became my team around in the right at the start of the 06-07 season. I've gone through some upheaval in my life and stuff like that, right? And just learned some life lessons, and started that process of coming back from all that, and coming back better was just watching the Sens, keeping some positivity in the mix, and really, like, it sounds cliche, like, as a person, like, the Sens are part of who I am, straight up. It sounds cliche, but it's true.
Oh, we get that, Dennis. So we get that.
And man, like, that 06-07 season was just. Wow, it was such a ride.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like you take the first hit of it, you're like, wow, is it going to be like this every year? Like when we started doing this show and they made it to the conference final, Game 7, double overtime, we're like, oh, wow, we're going to do this every year. It's going to be a blast. And haven't covered a playoff game since. So obviously things can go up and down, but there have been some great moments along the way, Dennis. Now, what outside of that first love, that first Swan, where it's like, oh my goodness, they made it all the way to the Cup final. They didn't just make it to the Cup final that year, by the way. 5 games first round, 5 games second round, 5 games third round. It was really kind of a massacre along the way. But since then, what's been your moment that maybe you were falling out for a little bit, but it brought you right back in? Have you had one of those along the way?
I would say, if anything, like, there was never any worries that I was going to actually, like, stop cheering for the Sens or anything like that. But things were getting a bit stressful, I guess you could say. I don't know the right word. When that magical run happened in 2015 there, when the Sens went, like, what was it, like 21-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I remember the road trip that the Sens were on when that first started to happen. It was a West Coast on the opposite side of the continent. And every game was at like 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock here. But I stayed up to watch the first game, and it was it was so entertaining. And then I watched the next game. The Sens just kept winning and winning and winning and winning. And it's just like, man, like, how can you not cheer for this team as they're going along this way? Like, you can't.
No, that's the Hamburglar run. And I was in Halifax for that run as well. And the games you're talking about, I remember clear as day, where it was LA Anaheim. And this isn't, last year, 2 years ago, LA Anaheim, and Anaheim probably still to this extent, LA not so much, but where it was, a really tough trip, but even with San Jose being a great team back then. And what did they do? Shut out in LA, shut out in Anaheim, and then they went up. I believe they were trailing in the third period. Zach Smith gets a penalty shot in the third period. They end up winning that game. And then on the way back, they went to Winnipeg, Minnesota. It was like a wild road trip where they did like a whole loop of the country, and they come back 5-0. While people are listening to this, they might have been 0-5 on their most recent road trip out to the western part of the world. But no, Dennis, that's a great callback. Just the vibes at that point. There was so much unexpected glory that year, for lack of a better term. And even the way it ended was tough too, because that Game 6 against Montreal, it's a 1-0 loss. Kind of ironic. I talk about how they started off with such great goaltending. They end up losing to MVP Carey Price in a 1-0 loss. I think they might have got an empty netter. But who are some of the first Senators, maybe even going back to 06-07 or during that run, that you fell in love with, where you're like, okay, this is my team because these are my guys?
Oh, straight up, Chris Neal.
Nice.
Like, straight up. Yeah. That 06-07 year I remember so well, because the Sens actually started out like very mediocre. They were barely a 500 team. I think they were under 500 when they suddenly caught fire. But part of the reason why they caught fire is because of, like, to a bit of a lesser extent, but like Mike Fisher, but also Chris Neal. The reason, and I put those two guys in the same boat, I guess, in this case, because, like, when Sens skill players weren't doing a whole lot and the game was sort of like getting away from them every single time, you just see Fisher and Neal hop over the boards, and they would just forecheck the ever-loving bleep out of the other team. When I say forecheck, I mean like they just put the puck deep in the other team's end, and they would just like hammer, steamroll the other team's D, and get to the point where the other team was backing off of pucks.
Yeah.
And then you just unload the pizza line and let them go to work. You know what I mean? And that's like, I just love seeing that, right? Like that thunderous forecheck and just literally overwhelming teams in all facets of the game. It was amazing.
Now, do you think this current roster with the right coaching, now that there's a change in the guard behind the bench, can get back to that type of hockey? Or do you think this team just isn't really built that way and they're going to have to find a different way to go about things?
So I think they can do something similar. Maybe not quite exactly the same like that team way back when. And I want to say that because there's nobody really on the team that could be the next Chris Neil. I think maybe Castley could get their, light version kind of deal, but I still think it's similar, like just relying on a solid forecheck, right, to be able to control the momentum of the game, because the game's going to get away from you no matter how well you play. Like, it's just going to happen because that's life, right? Yeah. But you need a way to be able to get that momentum back, to swing it back your way, right? You need to be able to rely on basic systems, on basic structure of your play in order to make sure that you don't start running around, you don't let the game go off the rails, right? And for that team back then, and I think it's the same for this team now, right? It's having a solid forecheck, because you're not giving up any easy pucks. You're making the other team work like a dog, right? Or work like dogs to be able to get the puck off the ice, right? You make it very, very, very difficult to play against.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we love Game Time because they make buying tickets to your favorite event easy. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. You can get anything on Game Time with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. What a combo. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. In fact, if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time's going to go ahead and credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in just a matter of seconds. 2 taps, boom, tickets right on your phone. Forget busting out the old printer. They are sent to your phone. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. What a perfect place to go for a holiday meal with friends and family at Shawarma Palace. You can visit any of Shawarma Palace's 7 locations all across our nation's capital. They're also available to bring right to you with Uber Eats. So if you're hungry and you don't want to move, make sure you get your Shawarma Palace delivered right to you. You can get the platter with all sorts of accoutrements. It's always delicious. It's always got the quantity. And you also have the option of whether it's a shawarma poutine, whether it's falafel, whether you're looking at just getting a sandwich. It's always fresh. It's always delicious. It's always at Shawarma Palace. When I go, I always get the extra garlic. The potatoes are to die for. They're so delicious. I love the puffy rice that you get in your platter. You get everything you need for a delicious shawarma. So whether you're going on Rideau Street, Bank Street, Orleans, or wherever you are in the city of Ottawa, you're never too far from a Shawarma Palace. So go eat like a royal today. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. I want to get into today's roster construction as well. Like the coaches first, and if not, then you start looking around the room, and maybe there's some guys where the heat's turned up. If you were the new coach, and you've been watching them from afar, which players would you be keying in on and saying these guys need to be better for our team to have success?
I would say that I want Brady Tkachuk to be a bit more
Chris Neil-like.
Yeah, yeah, great way to put it, right? Just because I find he's been a little bit quiet. I'm not saying to give him a free ticket and just go, like get all the penalties kind of deal and what have you, right? But But part of his MO is being able to drag teams into the fight, and the way he does that is he gets right in up close in the trenches, and he makes the other team's life a living hell. Right, that's what he does, and seems like he's kind of gotten away from that a little bit for the last little while, right? And but just to remember that part, I kind of do the same message with Kasalik as well. I think he's been quite soft, I will say, lately. And you saw the game against the Coyotes, right? Like Alfie picked him up right away as he came off the bench, And you look at a guy like Kasalik, he's a monster, right? He should be destroying people left, right, and center all the time. Even if he doesn't score a single goal, like that ability to physically control the other opponent like that, like that's invaluable. Yeah. And I really just look to the bottoms, like to the bottom six in general, and just realize like what their role is. Right, the role is, in my opinion, it would be like your role is to control, is to keep the momentum in check for us, or so that our top six guys can go to work and still make plays and all that kind of stuff. Because when the momentum gets away from you, there's no more room. The other team, just psychologically speaking, right, like they're right up on you. They're not giving you a whole lot of room, and then I find like you kind of can't rely so much on your top six to be able to solely swing momentum and score all the goals. I'm not saying they can't do both. And then for the top six as well, just sometimes less is more, right? There's been sometimes where they're trying to make too many skill plays, or they're forcing the skill play when just a simple I hate to say it, but a simple dump and chase might work, where you actually chase, or just get pucks on net and crash the net, right? Because then if you're just relying on skill the whole time, same thing again. The other team's going to read up on that. They're just going to press up on you, not giving you any room, right? And you're just going to turn the puck over every single time because you can't outskill hard work.
Yeah, and this is the NHL. You're not going to be able to outskill teams every single night here. I want to get your opinion, Dennis, on this whole coaching situation. Still, as we're recording this, December 20th, is still pretty fresh. Only one game under the new regime, if you will. Where were you at with DJ Smith? Were you at a point where it was like, okay, this guy should have been let go yesterday? Like it's already too far? Did you think he should have been given a longer leash with all the injuries and all the crazy stuff going on? Or did you think now is the time to do this and they did what they had to do?
I hate to say it because I got nothing against the guy. I think it was time. It was time to make the change. You can make the argument maybe it was 1 or 2 games overdue. But at the end of the day, the change had to be made because nothing was working anymore. You could see the game, the team's game was literally evaporating on us, right? And when that happens, nobody's really giving it their 110% anymore. Not necessarily because they're just being lazy, but just because you're tuning everything out now, right? It's just sort of human nature that way. And I think it was time. I think Jacques Martin is a pretty good choice. High structure, high detail kind of guy, and pretty well exactly what the Sens need, and especially being coupled with Alfie as the assistant, who can provide that emotional element in there because he was a high end player back in the day, but played the quote unquote the right way. He's able to bring that to the guys. That's very valuable for the team, and I think that was the right move.
I love it. And Dennis, you just kind of alluded to the positivity that I always notice you bring on social media as well. I should mention people can go follow you there. Dennis, DENNIS 55142. And a part of your bio too, you mentioned you are a Navy man, and thank you for your service. Is there someone or are there many people that you either go to work with every day or in your everyday life in Halifax that you can talk Sens with? Do you have a little crew of Sens fans out there, or how do you get it across outside of on social media? Are you able to talk Sens in your everyday life there?
I haven't. You know what? Sens fans that I come across since I've been in the Navy have been few and far between.
Our guy Drew Foran is a Sens fan. We've had him on as a citizen. He's in the Navy out there. Yeah,
I worked for him very briefly, a number of years ago. He definitely wouldn't remember me though, because I was just a lowly junior guy at the time.
Right.
But no.
All you had to do was give him a praise Alfie. He would have remembered you forever.
Probably, yeah. But a few here and there. Definitely a number of hockey fans. Be it Leafs fans, unfortunately, Habs fans, that kind of stuff. But they're not. They're still good people that you can talk shop with. Talk hockey with, and everything like that. And they're still pretty knowledgeable about how the Sens have been doing and all that kind of stuff. So it's been okay.
Yeah, well, hopefully Sens fans out east see this and they can gather and you guys can connect out on the East Coast.
What I do love, though, is it sends regional broadcasts. Like, it's not Leafs region, it's not Habs region. The TSN local is TSN 5. So I like that. Hopefully that converts a few more if they get some wins under their belt here eventually.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next thing I want to go to, there's a famous saying, show me a good goalie and I'll show you a good coach.
Mhm.
Do you think this might just boil down to, even with the coaching change, even with more detailed defensive structure and all these things that Jacques Martin is hopefully going to bring to this team, part of me just thinks it's all going to boil down to one of these guys, or, I mean, hopefully both of them in Forsberg and Korpisalo can figure it out, because I mean, Corpy had a great game up against Arizona. He made a lot of big saves, but he still let in one of his patented goals, that third goal. That was a momentum killer that you just can't have if you're going to win hockey games. Do you think this is going to be more focused on the goalies getting better for this team to turn it around? Or do you think, hey, you get a better defensive structure, the goalies are going to be able to play a better game, or at least have better opportunities in front of them? Where do you kind of stand on the goalie versus coaching issue, the demise of this team so far?
So in this team's specific situation, I would very much say it's the latter. Defensive structure, just the style of play, and smarter decisions with the puck. Right? Because what we're seeing here with what I noticed with Corpy over the last few games, you probably say the same thing about Forsey as well, is that they're, for the most part, they don't have a problem making the big saves and everything like that. What we're seeing is they're having trouble with the routine ones. Yeah. And now, not a goalie guy, but from my experience, what I see is that when you're in that situation, it's not a question of ability, it's not a question of skill, it's a question of confidence, right? And like, being a goalie is a hard enough job as it is, because every single time you make a mistake, everybody in the arena and everybody on TV sees it. And so it's really a question of, I think it's like, what we need here is we need more confidence Corpy and Forsey need to have more confidence in themselves. But the way part of them getting to that point is having the team play better in front of them. And by better, I mean more structured, being able to limit high danger chances, right? Lost shots from the outside is okay. A few from, high danger areas, maybe not so much, kind of thing. And once the goaltending sees that kind of defensive support in place, right? And then go as far as say as well, like the offense comes as well, right? I think you see improved play from the two. So definitely, like defensive structure, the team play first before the goaltending, right? Because you need the goaltending to be able to stand on its head and steal a few games. I get that, but you can't rely on that night in and night out.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and for a good reason. They're America's #1 sportsbook. Why would you go anywhere else? And right now, new customers in the U.S. can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. I love their app. I always return to FanDuel because their app is so much better than any of the other competitors, and it's safe, simple, secure. Even a guy like me can use it, so you can as well, and you're going to love it because there is a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, parlays, anyone, and more. And it's not just hockey, guys. You can bet on football, basketball, college sports, whatever you like. You can find it on FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub. Go visit the GLEBE Central Pub right in the heart of the Glebe, 779 Bank Street. And what better time to go to the GLEBE Central Pub than before an Ottawa Senators game? You can get your tickets at the GLEBE Central Pub for not only the game itself, but for the shuttle. The shuttle at the GLEBE Central Pub is the best. It leaves an hour and 15 minutes before the game from 779 Bank Street, right in the heart of the Glebe, and it takes you to the CTC. Brings you right back afterwards as well for all the fun that you can have. Are you heading to the PWHL home opener January 2nd at TD Place? Well, it's walking distance from the GLEBE Central Pub, so why don't you have some fun, whether it's before, after, or both? Do it at the GLEBE Central Pub. They are great sponsors of Locked On Senators. And when you head there, make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. It's the Glebe Central Pub where the vibes are free at the GCP at 779 Bank Street. Go check out the Sens Shuttle online at the GLEBECentralPub.com. And Sens fans would know better than anybody that you put a goalie in the right situation and their numbers can change as well. I mean, Philip Gustafson, Cam Talbot, and the list goes on and on of guys who have brutal numbers in Ottawa, and then they go somewhere else where there is more structure and look at what the results are. They kind of tell themselves. Cam Talbot literally in the running for the Vezina this year, which kind of tells the whole story after we kind of ran him out of town, to lack of better terms. And yeah, injuries played a role as well. But I'm with you, Dennis. I think that structure needs to be the first thing, getting the second and third chances out of the way. How many times this season where the Sens goalie's on his back when the puck finally goes in the back of the net? Like, it just feels like, they're really hanging their goalies out to dry. Who do you think how should I put this? Because I don't think that it's necessarily a coaching thing. Like, do you think that a goalie coach would make a difference at this point, switching that up?
Definitely something to look at. Unfortunately, I don't know our current guy's body of work and all that kind of stuff. I would say, if you're in a position where you're wondering about whether or not to make a change, again, it's not so much about how's he coaching him skill and ability wise. It's how's he handling the psychological, the emotional, the mental aspects, right? Yep. Like, is this a guy that's pumping up Corpy and Forsey's tires, right? Or is he like putting them down? Is he just calling them? Like, what's going on here, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you need your goalies confident. They need to be warriors out there, right? Like, I don't care. I'm going and doing it kind of deal, right? Because, like, you need your goalies to be a little bit crazy, honestly. Like, And yeah, that's what I would look at.
Can't have normal goalies. I love that, Dennis. That's great. As a goalie friendly show, we are probably both a little crazy here. Episode too many for too few wins, but no, we absolutely love it. We love having you on. I've got a final question for you. Is there a 2-5 on that Sens Heritage jersey that you're wearing right now?
No, sorry, man. Yeah, it's a blank one.
Would that be the next jersey that you got if you were to get one? Would it be a throwback Chris Neal, or would it be one of the guys on the team right now?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think right now I'd probably go for a Neal jersey right now. Yep. Show me a couple of playoff series with our current iteration. I'd be more than happy to go with a current player.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't blame you at all for that one. Final question for me, not really a question, but I like to do this. 100%. Is there anything we missed? The floor is yours, Dennis. Anything you want to talk about? Any questions you have for us? Any stories that you want to get to that we didn't tee up for?
You know what? I'll say this. Probably one of my most special Sens memories was late October. It was October of 2009.
Okay.
I was in the building it was a Sens versus Islanders game. And one of the most joyous, special moments that I witnessed, Matt Carkner's first NHL goal.
Okay, nice. That was not what I was expecting. All right.
It's right out of nowhere. It was the most unspectacular goal ever scored. All he did was just put the puck out in front, and it just happened to hit a couple of skates and went right into the Islanders' net. But the standing ovation that guy got from the crowd was incredible, right? Because, like, this is a guy that worked his tail off to get to where he was at that point in time. Yeah. Like, it was just a mad amount of respect for him. So yeah, that's all.
That's amazing. That was Erik Karlsson's third career NHL game.
Really? Holy moly.
Yeah. If not, wow. I mean, that's bright and early. I've even got the score up already right here. Do you know how that game ended?
Was it 4-3 Ottawa?
3-2, but in overtime.
Okay.
Mike Fisher scores the winner 32 seconds into overtime. Matt Carkner's goal, I mean, you remember it clear as day, so why don't I ask you this? Who assisted on Matt Carkner's first career NHL goal?
I'd be guessing, man. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Alex Kovalev.
Oh, you almost, like, you had the first word, Alex Picard.
No chance he was getting that one.
Man. No, that was the secondary assist. I was looking for Jonathan Chichu as the answer there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Last throwback name.
Oh, geez. I actually got a signed Jonathan Chichu jersey in my closet.
Solid.
Seriously, yeah.
Oh man, what could have been, eh? What could have been? If only the Sens got Joe Thornton in that deal too, he would have scored 50 in a Sens jersey.
Yeah. Oh, we would have been golden. Hilarious though, looking at those rosters, like Kyle Oposo scored for the Islanders. Guy's still playing, and this game was October 8th, 2009. So
Wow.
I mean, that's a long time ago. But I like these memories. I like being able to pull it up. And Matt Kartner actually added an assist. So how about a goal
Woo.
and an assist? 2-point night. I bet you Karks didn't have too many of those, but that's a great memory too. The goaltending matchup, just because we're talking goalies, I'll end off with that. Pascal Leclerc for the Ottawa Senators
Oh,
against Martin Biron with the New York Islanders.
wow.
Now
Okay.
TSN analyst. So that's awesome. And it does kind of spark my curiosity as well, Dennis, as a guy who lives out in Halifax.
Yeah.
Have you been able to get to many games, or was that one of the few that you have been able to get to Ottawa and go to?
So lately I haven't gone to any games. Actually, the last game I went to was back in 2013. I actually took my wife to her first NHL game.
Nice.
But no, when I was young and single here and everything like that, I go back. I usually see about 2 or maybe 3 games a year. When I go back home, yeah.
Well,
Nice.
we got to get you to the home opener. You gotta come to the next home opener.
Home openers are the best. But you're born in Ottawa then?
Yeah, so I was born in Ottawa. I actually grew up in a small town about 2.5 hours away from Ottawa, and then moved to Halifax in summer of 2007.
Give him a shout out. What's the town?
Westport, Ontario.
Westport, Ontario. There you have it. Awesome, Dennis. Well, we appreciate you being a SensCentral citizen. I love that story right at the end. People love getting these old names thrown out there. So Matt Kartner, first career NHL goal. That's awesome. And we really appreciate you, man. We see you on the postcast. We see you hanging out, and we appreciate the positivity that you bring in the fan base as well. Everyone could go follow you on Twitter, Dennis55142. Dennis, thank you for being a SensCentral citizen. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to doing this again down the road.
Same. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate the time. It was an honor to be on your show. Love it. Thanks, guys. Go Sens, go.
Stick tabs to Dennis for joining us. Really fun conversation with him. I'm glad that we are able to shine a light through Sens fans who bring positivity and bring a whole lot of engagement to the table. So if you're in the postcast chat ever, go now. You can see all these names. They're starting to make sense. Hot Lunch. You've got all sorts of different people who are getting their fingerprints all over this show, because the show would be nothing without you guys. That's why even though we're on vacation, we're like, hey, do we just take the week off? No way. The last couple of weeks we've been grinding. We've been making sure that we have quality content for you throughout the next week while we're away. I'm on my honeymoon. Pilsy's soaking in the sun with his lady, and we're just having good vibes here for the Ottawa Senators fan base, who right now, Pilsy, they've lost 5 in a row. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully either against the Penguins or against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I guess, tonight. So if they don't win against Pittsburgh, they're waiting until tonight's game. So full game day preview from me, my turn. Leafs suck.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't agree more, Ross. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I went all the way to Ottawa and watched them lose to the Leafs, so they need payback for this one. Even though I thought Ottawa deserved to win that game the last time they played Toronto, I think they outshot them 40-something to 20-something. Joseph Woll gets hurt with 13 minutes left. It just wasn't enough time for them to get that equalizer.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is a different scenario tonight, and for all of our Sens fans, enjoy this hopefully battle of Ontario, not the ballet of Ontario. Hopefully it's a battle.
Well, tomorrow, and this just happened to work out this way, Eric is our SensCentral citizen, and guess what? He used to be a Leafs fan, but not anymore. Not anymore. He'll get into that story and a whole lot more. And stay tuned for Friday. We're going to have a best of. If you have any interviews, best ofs that you want featured, probably a little late here to be saying it on Wednesday, but hey, get them in. Pilsy we'll have something good for you no matter what, though. We've got some great stories have been told on this podcast throughout the last year. We're going to do our best to bring those to you in a concise manner. So that's it here for a game day edition of Locked On Senators, December 27th. Again, the postcast is going to be on hiatus for the next 3 games. It'll be back against Vancouver on January 2nd. But stay tuned for another Citizen tomorrow, a best of on Friday, Emily Clark interview on Monday, and then we'll be back with Locked On Senators, a game day edition, live taping on January 2nd. Pilsy, any final thoughts from you?
Final thoughts for me is... let's go Sens go. I mean, there's not much more to say than that, Ross. Leafs suck. Go Sens go.
For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another vacation edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.